Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the LitRPG podcast, episode number 276 of the show. I'm Ramon Mejia, here to bring you the latest LitRPG news, reviews, and author interviews. This week I have 5 reviews for you folks at home, and that's going to include The Legend of Randidly Ghosthound, a little bitty adventure. Also, Gates of Thunder, Loner book number 1, and also Forest of Skills, and Town Under, a post-apocalyptic LitRPG, The System Apocalypse Australia, book number 1. And last but not least, the webcomic Regressor Instruction Manual. So 5 nice reviews for you folks. But before we get into any of that, of course, we're going to go into LitRPG news. And in LitRPG news, we're going to begin with some nice Black Friday deals. By the time most of you guys are listening to this or watching it, it'll be Thanksgiving or so. So it's always nice to have a compilation of things you can spend your money on while you're on vacation or just wanting to ignore your family. And here are some nice little deals for you. We're going to start off with a nice Black Friday Audible deals that include some very good LitRPG and game lit stories. Some of the titles included are going to be Blood of Fate, Ravenous, Street Cultivation, Rudy and Gate Online, Cinnamon Bun, Class A Threat, Dungeon Tree, Tall Rock, Monster's Mercy, The Shadowed Sword, God Gnome, Chrysalis, Vanquer the Dragon, Enemy of the World, Ether's Blessing, and Watcher's Task, just to name a few of them. We'll have a link in the show notes, of course, going to that deal. Now, just to make sure that you can see them all, I believe to participate in the Black Friday Audible deal, you need to be a Audible subscriber, and you also need to, I think this might be restricted to the US only. We've had some comments from UK readers and people from Australia like, I don't see this deal. I think it might be US only. So if that's the case, sorry folks, but some of these deals are really good, as low as $5, $6 for some of these titles, and they're like 10, 15 hours long stories or more for some of the titles. And I've actually read most of the stories that I've named off to, with the exception, I think, of Chrysalis and Vanquer the Dragon. And I've enjoyed all of them. So they're all like really entertaining stories. And even the ones I haven't read, they have lots of good reviews. So you probably enjoy this as well. So definitely go check them out. And there are, of course, other novels. And this isn't just a LitRPG sale. It's Audible's collection of like their top stuff for sale for you. So you might find some other deals. In other Black Friday deals, unfortunately, I didn't see a lot of authors talking about their Black Friday deals this year. There have only been a couple. Dan Hansen was nice enough to have on his website a list of some of the stuff he's putting on sale, and also some of the people he knows, and also just like Angel Ramon. So like just that's kind of it. So I'll link in the show notes for those deals. The Great Centurion series, all 3 books, I believe, are 99 cents each. So you might want to check that out if you're interested in a Roman LitRPG story. And also Illusion, the Blacklight Chronicles, Nemesis, Sparta Online, Glitchroll Ground Zero, ARSE, Augmented Reality System Explosion, and Ethermark. So all those are either going to be 99 cents or free. And they have various starts. I think a couple of them are available now, but a few of them also only start on November the 26th, which is in a couple of days, which is actually Black Friday. So definitely check the show notes to see when they start. If you don't see that they're at the discounted rate when you click on the notes. Okay. In other LitRPG news, we have Ascent Online, Luke Chimaleko's story. We talked about him, I believe, a while ago, doing a Kickstarter project. And here he has a Kickstarter project. He has 11 days left to support it, and it's already funded. Yeah, the original funding goal was $1,970. And it funded in like 7 hours. So it's fully funded. So you're going to get your work. You're going to get your comic as long as nothing terrible happens. But you only got 11 days left to go to support it. So if you want that comic, if you want to get this fine work from one of my favorite people in the world, and one of the best LitRPG authors, of course, definitely go check it out. Go support it. There are plenty of rewards still available for you folks. I think the early backer rewards are all gone, of course, but you can support it for $1, for 5, 10, 20, 30, depending on what kind of rewards you want to get. And we'll have a link in the show notes for the Ascend Online comic. So just from the artwork I've seen, really nice stuff already. Okay, on to some unfortunate news in LitRPG world. We have another plagiarism outburst. Every week I go through Amazon's list of LitRPG that is on pre-order and that has been released recently. And there's a ton of stuff that's being stolen from translation sites. And I've learned to just kind of ignore it because there's nothing I can do about it. They're not breaking the Kindle Unlimited connection because they're just for sale, but they're absolutely ripoffs from translation sites, from things that have transformed other countries, and I can't contact those authors. But in this particular case, this is actually stories from American liberty authors that we both probably know and love and have read. And this is not the first time we've seen it from this particular group. Like I've seen reported this a couple months ago, where they were doing these like really terrible covers and just copying and pasting for the novel description, a review for that title, and then just literally just no effort to mask what they're doing, just copying the file and uploading it under their own fake title name and an author name for titles that in this case there are 4 in each category for each one of these titles. One is for the Rogue Dungeon series, and another group of them are for the Stonehaven League series by Carrie Summers. And we have in the video version, you can see the actual terrible covers. I'll read off the names of them, but even the titles are stolen from other actually well-known stories. So it's and the cover art for these things are just stolen, like WoW artwork or just other fantasy artwork that's completely plagiarized even in that respect. Now I've left 1-star reviews on all these that I could find. Hopefully Amazon will post them. Sometimes they don't for some reason. But if you happen to come across them, feel free to one star them. You'll see them. You'll know that these are the ones I was talking about. Impressed at LitRPG Adventure. Underpower Howard at LitRPG Adventure. And again, Underpower Howard is an actual title of a real story, but they stole the title and some, they stole the artwork from WoW. But you can tell the cover is not professional. This is just they've thrown together cover art. Also, Desire at LitRPG Adventure, which is again another title from a real story. But the cover art is again stolen from like WoW fan artwork or just fantasy artwork. Those 3 are literally just the same book in the Dungeon series, just copied out, this group is hoping that you're not going to notice and they can get some sales before anybody notices and get paid out, and hopefully we'll be able to stop them. Now the other titles are Advanced Fighting Fantasy, a LitRPG Adventure story, and Desire LitRPG Adventure Adventure Volume, Echoes of the System Battle, and LitRPG Adventure Fantasy, Legion of the Overgrown Jungle Beasts. And again, in the video version of the podcast, we'll have all the cover arts. You can see them very clearly. They're all very terrible and basic. And sometimes these titles are again from real LitRPG stories, so don't confuse the two. If you intend to leave a review saying it's a 1-star and stolen, to help warn other readers who potentially are going to spend money on other Kindle Unlimited pages or purchases on these plagiarized stories. So there we go. I have, of course, notified the authors so they can hopefully get them taken down as soon as possible. Okay, on to stuff that is out now. Stuff that has come out since the last time we had a podcast. So there's a few titles out. And again, it takes hours to go through Amazon and comb through just the stolen stuff from translation sites, the sexual fantasy novels, and just a ton. I've noticed a ton of stories that have come out they're just fantasy stories. They're just science fiction. They're just steampunk or something. And they have nothing to do with LitRPG, but the authors for those titles are putting in our tag when they publish the books on their metadata, so it's showing up on a search for LitRPG. And so we had to comb through all those pages and pages of just stuff that doesn't have anything to do with us. So this is always a good resource to go to if you don't want to have to wade through those things to see what has come out. I always recommend, and I put this on our website and our Facebook page, for you folks who are readers, so you can, comb through the chat and see the good stuff that might have come out since the last time you had a chance to look out there. That it's going to include Dungeon Core Online by Jonathan Smith. So this is the second book in the series. Alpha Resplendent, Alpha LitRPG book number 4, The Guardian of the Verge, The Range book number 3, The Bright Finish This, also The Houndsman, a base building LitRPG adventure, also Cyber Squad Level 2, then also the third book in the Dungeon of Stories series, the fifth, I believe this is the final book in the Valhalla Online series, Burn It Down. And I think this is an interesting story for this one because it's written by Kevin McLaughlin. He wrote the first, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. And he just never finished it. I think he wasn't seeing the sales he was looking for. And so he went on to do some other things but he always had an intention to come back and finish off the series, at least because he knows how fans are and they like a complete, story arc. And this finishes it off. He actually had time to, do cover art, republish them all so that, they came out on a regular basis to help lead you up to the final book. And this is it. So if you've enjoyed the series ever, the final book's out. Also out now is Isle of Destiny, a Buccaneers Do book. So if you like pirate LitRPG, this might do it for you. Also, the third book in the Alpha Physics series is out right now for you to enjoy. A book called Mercenary Manager, a Dark Isekai LitRPG team builder, book number 2. The King's Soul book number 2 is also out, as is Neverstone book number 2. And Fey Nexus book number 2 is also out for you. And of course, The Wandering in book number 5, which I believe hopefully everybody's picking up. It's out as an ebook, as an audiobook. I've definitely already grabbed it. Haven't had a chance to read it. I just finished Randidly Ghosthound, which is also a very long book. Also out right now, though, is Path of the Dragon Mage Exiled, a LitRPG fantasy, as is Star Diver's Mirror Song, a sci-fi LitRPG game and adventure. Also Dungeon Item Shop Volume 2, which a lot of folks actually seem to enjoy. Second one is out. Also, The Goblin Summoner book number 3, which is a deck building LitRPG. This series didn't really do it for me, but a lot of other people seem to enjoy it. So if you like the series, book 3 is out. Also, Lonely Apocalypse book number 1. Also Ember Mage, and let's see what else we have. Arrival in LitRPG series, and then a new series, or kind of a prequelish series from Ryan de Bruin called Ether Flows book number 1. That's the series title. The actual book is called Tech Den and the Birth of a Void God, an Ether Collapse series. Also out is Growth Hero number 3, and the third book in the Mad series, They Call Me the Maddest. Also, My RN Genius is Omnipotent. This is a basic cover. I don't know how good the story is, but it seems to have a nice little sense of humor. Also out is Apocalypse Game, the Chessboard War book number 1, as is The Rise of the Lost Star Nebula, and Mana Harvest, a light novel farming LitRPG, Magic Crops book number 1. So all those stories are out as ebooks. And again, a lot of these are kind of hidden away in just like the reams and reams of stuff that has nothing to do with LitRPG, or just plagiarized translation novels. So like I said, you might find some nice hidden gems in here if you want to go through the list. Okay, audiobooks. We have, again, a good selection of audiobooks for you that has come out recently. That includes The Wandering book number 5. Civ CEO book number 5, The Demonic Games Discardium book number 7, The Reincarnation Trials, a LitRPG Apocalypse. We also have Viridian Gate Online Resurrection. Also out as an audiobook is The Houndsman, as is Challenger's Call book number 2. Also, The System of the Apocalypse book number 2 is out as an audiobook. Underverse book number 5, Challenger's Call book number 1. Sentence to Troll 4, Beta Test, the Nano Wilder Saga book number 1, the 11th book in the Dragon Heart series, Mountain Valley War Second Dive Concludes, World Tree Online book number 3 by Amy Carlson is out for you to enjoy. Dungeon Core Online book number 2 is out as an audiobook and ebook at the same time. Game Break Hayden's book number 1 is out as an audiobook. The Legend of Randidly Ghosthound is out for you to enjoy, of course. The 5th book in the Origami Online Chronicle series is out. The story called A System Reborn, Rise of the Glass Cannon Mage. Also, Roll, Hex Rolled book number 1, written by the amazing Kevin J. Anderson, who's done a ton of stuff in like regular fantasy and sci-fi world. He wrote a LitRPG story. Didn't seem to do so well, but there's an audiobook version of it if you want to go give that a shot. We also have The Rebel, Project Stellar series book number 4 out as an audiobook, as is the compilation Dungeon World series by Jonathan Brooks, books 1 through 5, out as an audiobook. And this is a massive, I want to say it was like 50 hours or something around there. So I'm like, that's a definite good audiobook deal if you're looking to get your bang for your buck for audiobook credit. Also out is Eden's Gate, The Scourge. So that's book number 7 in that particular series for the audiobook. So all kinds of good audiobooks out for you to enjoy as well. On to upcoming LitRPG. This is just where I read the stuff that I know is coming out in the near future for the rest of this month, all of December and January. So if you want to plan your reading schedule or your publishing schedule for an author, this is a good resource for you. We're going to start off with November 28th, Castle Manager and Isekai LitRPG Progression, The Fantasy World of Dorban, book number 3. On November the 30th, it'll be Defiance of the Fall, book number 3. On December the 1st, it'll be Hunter's Dream Online, The Pierce Veil, the second book in that series, which isn't actually in the title. December the 1st as well, it'll be Viceroy's Pride, book number 1, Into Twilight. On December the 1st, it'll be VR Hero, book number 5, Future. On December the 2nd, book number 2 of the Shared Insanity series, The Outcast from Another World. December the 3rd, I know some readers will remember the chess series from Kit of Halbo. Well, the second book is going to be available. Fair Quest, book number 2, The Rise of Chess. On December the 7th, it'll be Awaken Online Happy, a side quest in the Awaken Online series. December the 7th, it'll be Cleaver's Edge. On December the 10th, Guardian of Astrofall, book number 2. December 13th, the Aussie Mana Apocalypse, book number 4, which a lot of folks found entertaining. On December the 14th, Uncontrollable, a LitRPG adventure. December the 14th, Frostworld, book number 3. On December the 15th, a Clan Dominance, The Sleepless Ones, book number 9. December the 16th, Fantasia, book number 2. December the 21st, Epiphany Realms, book number 2. On December 22nd, The Frost Ridge, First Circle. On December the 26th, Adventures of Brad, book number 7. December 28th, Alpha Realm, book number 3, level 0. December the 28th, He Who Fights with Monsters, book number 4. On January the 3rd, Good Game, Unfrozen, book number 3. On January the 4th, rather, The Buccaneers do book number 2, In Pursuit of a Manuscript. That's another addition to the pirate LitRPG story we mentioned earlier. January the 4th, Prime Wars. On January the 4th, Viridian Gate Archives, book number 8. Viridian Gate Online, Empirical Endgame, which I think might be the last book in that series. On January the 10th, it'll be Shaman's Call. January the 17th, the 8th book in the Adventures on Brad series. January 18th, World of Magic, book number 3, and that is it. That's everything I know for the rest of November, December, and January. Scouring through the Amazon listings to find all the good stuff for you guys to enjoy and to plan out your schedule. On to new releases and reviews. Okay, first review for the week is into The Legend of Randidly Ghosthound, a LitRPG adventure written by Nord Flood, aka Puddles 4263. This is 574 pages, a massive tome, here at $4.99. It's available on Kindle Unlimited, and here's the author's description. Randidly Ghosthound felt lost and alone even before the system transformed the Earth. Before every person had to deal with the sudden presence of levels, skills, monsters, and the very real possibility of death. Due to unusual circumstances, Randomly starts in an isolated dungeon far beyond his level, forced to rely on the mysterious traveler Shal in order to learn and survive with the dangerous new status quo for his world. But survive he does, only to leave the dungeon and discover that while he experienced several hellish months in the dungeon, only half a day passed on Earth. Randily's capabilities are now more than enough to help build a small enclave of survivors, but that doesn't mean balancing his sense of responsibility against the plot of an unfriendly town will be easy. And although he doesn't know it, he needs to prepare, because the system has sent down a tribulation which awaits in the shadows and monitors his every move. And there we go. And then it goes on to talk about how the story had 50 million views on Royal Road. So there we go. This is a very good RPG apocalypse story that originated online as a web serial. And so the story inherently kind of has a slice of life feel to it with regular arcs, but there is no like major plot for this series. And it's just because, again, it's a serial. It's an online serial story where the author would just publish chapters on a regular basis and kind of went the way that it went. And so you're following along the main character, Randidly Ghosthound, as he gets caught up in the RPG apocalypse. And so he has various adventures. There are mini plot arcs where he's in different locations or has different adversaries or has different obstacles to overcome, including interpersonal developments and town building and humans who aren't getting along and, monsters and all kinds of challenges from the system itself. But that's all you're really doing. You're following him as he goes. Now, a lot of the things that I really personally enjoyed in the story is just like the nice amount of character and not class progressions, but skill progression, I guess it would mostly be in the story. And that's a quirk for the main character. There's lots of power growth. There's lots of skill growth. For the other characters, there are levels and classes that develop, each of which has their own like variety of abilities. And there's lots of like regular good action in this story. And those things, I think, all kind of combine into like a very, very good, again, like story just to kind of follow along and have fun go on this adventure. It's a good, entertaining story. A lot of people online have enjoyed it on the web serial, and there's still chapters coming out, I believe, or have yet to be like compiled entirely. And so there's a lot of like information and stuff here to enjoy. It's like I said, it's a hefty like 574 pages, almost 600 pages. And so this is good value for your buck kind of reading, and it's a long story, and it's very easy just to get caught up in it and just continue on listening or reading it for like an extended period of time, which is very entertaining. So for me, it gets a score of 7.8 out of 10. The Legend of Randidly Ghosthound, easy review, very entertaining, with a score of, again, 7.8 out of 10. Okay, next up is going to be Gates of Thunder Loner Book Number 1, written by Alex Kosh. This is 465 pages, $3.99. It's available on Kindle Unlimited, and here's the author's description. Arctania is a virtual game in the steampunk style. It's a place where magic spells, enchanted artifacts, steam-powered machines, firearms, and mechanical golems are part of everyday life. Gamer Andrew Falk begins his journey in a small village on the border of Orcish territory. The locals are the keepers of many secrets, but their behavior is too realistic for characters in a game. So realistic, in fact, that Andrew starts to treat them as if they were real people. Maybe because of the way he plays, or maybe just thanks to good luck, he becomes one of a mysterious class of people known as Sliders, allowing him to control electricity and earn the favor of Valinia, the goddess of fate. But as he advances through levels, the pain threshold in his character setting gradually begins to drop, making the game increasingly more dangerous. Andrew is facing a hard choice, either to keep playing, risking eventual death by pain shock, or to abandon his game pod altogether. Still, his digital adventures won't let him go, immersing him ever deeper into VR. Okay, full disclosure, I received advance copy for review, and I purchased a copy when it became available. This is a Russian translated novel, and tonally, I think it reminds me a lot of the first book in the Way the Shaman series, which is one of my favorite stories. It's an uncomplex slice of life adventure with a guy who just got this top of the line gear VR rig and plays around in the best virtual reality game. You follow his adventures as he goes to his starter town, gets hints about his character randomly generated background, fights monsters, does quests, and defends the town from a player invasion from a rival MMO faction. There are hints about some creepy real-world implications for his broken trait, and the end definitely does that Russian LitRPG thing where it has this last-minute twist that keeps you guessing about potential plot changes. But mostly it's just a fun adventure in an MMO world with a main character. It is an easy read. I burned through this in it's just one sitting, and it's enjoyable. I had a really good time with it. It gets a score of 7.7 out of 10. And again, it's like I said, it's not a heavy story. It is mostly just like follow the main character as he goes through these adventures and tries to figure out things and has quests and interacts with NPC characters that feel like real people. And it doesn't have to be complicated to be enjoyable. It doesn't have to have like a super heavy plotline. Like there are definitely hints, like a lot of Russian liberty stories that are translated have this kind of thing where like the first book is kind of light, and then as the story develops, the plot gets a little heavier. You seem to get like these real world effects, so like these heavier twists and maybe some development for guilds and other PvP stuff. And this one is starting out that way again. I think talking to some Russian readers and some Russian publisher of this book in particular, was like, oh, this is like one of the oldest and the first LitRPG stories in Russia. And so a lot of the stories that came out, even though they were translated and published in the United States or in English first, kind of pull from this kind of story to some degree, apparently. And so I can definitely see the influences of those things. So had a good time with it. If you're looking for something just fun and casual and not particularly serious, I think this is a good read. Gets a score of 7.7 out of 10 for me. That's Gates of Thunder, Loner book number 1, with a score of 7.7 out of 10. Okay, next is going to be Forest of Skills, written by Yuri Zovik. It is 279 pages, $2.99. It's available on Kindle Unlimited, and here's the author's description. Skills are everything. When he accepts the hit, Russ would not have believed whose interest he was actually serving. Now, with the job done, an otherworldly being is giving him with one hand what was just taken from him, with the other his life. Skills are everything, and what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Placed into the world of skills, Russ found himself faced with a new life governed by a system he did not completely understand. It is, however, a completely new start. Will Russ continue doing what he does best, or will he be able to achieve the things that he had always wanted but considered to be lost because in his old life? Why not some of both? This is a literary story where the main character acquires skills and levels them up using them. He gets ability choices as he levels up, and as a reader, you will be going through the choices with him in most cases. That's what the novel description says. I'm just reading it. Okay. This is a transported to an RPG fantasy world with an interesting start. The main character is an assassin that kills the chosen one of another god and gets sent to an RPG fantasy world as a consequence. The main character reincarnates as a weak, sickly half-elf that has to use his new RPG abilities to survive and to live in this world. The beginning is mostly about the main character power leveling a few abilities and picking powers, and then exploring this world and doing anything he needs to survive, including hurting people for information, robbing bandits for coin. Mid and late story picks up the action, so there's a little more action there, as the main character gets a new companion and becomes involved in bigger issues in the world. The game mechanics are really simple. They're mostly about raising skills to get abilities and feats as the skill progresses. There are stats, but they're slow to grow and increasing in fractions of like a hundredth of a percent, I believe, or 0.01, with a normal score of 1 as a standard. One of the only weird spots in the story, and this really felt odd to me, is kind of a forced relationship that happens about halfway into the story. And it's a really ramped up relationship. The main character goes from a casual acquaintance with somebody to an adventuring partner to marriage in a couple of chapters. And it wasn't necessarily a bad shift. I think it allowed them, it gave the main character someone to talk to regularly. And the relationship is cute enough, but it did shift quickly and it felt super forced. And I read some other reviews where like, oh, this breaks it for me. It doesn't for me because I continued and I saw how the relationship became important just companion wise, and it allowed the story to kind of develop in different ways with his wife, I guess now. And it wasn't bad. The results weren't bad, but the shift was definitely like, oh, that's pretty sudden, I guess. Overall, though, it's a slice story that mostly focuses again on the things the main character does to increase his skills. In the forest area he finds himself. It's very entertaining if you enjoy crunchy adventure stories, some build theory, and good action. There's a lot of notifications here. Just be aware of that. It really is crunchy. Give it a score of 7.6 out of 10. Loses a little bit just because that sudden relationship build and just some of the repetitive character sheets that come up on a little bit too regular basis for me. So I'd rather have more numbers than not, I suppose. Score 7.6 out of 10 for Forest of Skills. Okay, next up we have Town Under, a post-apocalyptic lit RPG, The System Apocalypse Australia, book number 1, written by Tao Wong and Katie Hanna. This is 487 pages, $4.99. It's available on Kindle Limited. Here's the author's description. What's worse than Australian wildlife? Mutated Australian wildlife. The system apocalypse has come to Australia, alternating native organisms and importing even more menacing creatures to the most dangerous continent on Earth. For Kira Kent, plant biologist, the system arrives while she's pulling an all-nighter at work with her pair of her kids in tow. Now, instead of the mundane parental concerns like childcare and paying the bills, she's got to figure out how to survive a world where already deadly flora and fauna have grown even more perilous, all while dealing with the minutiae of the system's pesky blue screens and levels, and somehow putting together a community of survivors to forge a safe zone to shelter her son and daughter. It almost makes her miss the PTA fundraising sales. Almost. There he goes. It's a cute little introduction. And then it goes on to describe that this is a kind of a side series in the System Apocalypse universe written by Tao Wong. And events start at the same time as the first book in the series, Life in the North, but they have their own thing. So it's still an original series. Okay. This is an entertaining story from a couple of my favorite authors. Tao Wong's flexible System Apocalypse story universe lends itself well to being an expanded universe series. And what I mean by that is that other authors, either co-writing or writing on their own in an established universe. The main System Apocalypse series by Tao Wong is coming to an end. I believe the last book is coming out relatively soon, or has. And that'll be the end of that main series. But because the authors put so much work into all the world building and the rules and the events that happen there, it makes it very easy to actually have other people come in and write their own original stories and kind of build out your world more, because the main series only takes place in a very small portion, relatively small portion of North America. And so there's a whole lot of the rest of the world for other stories to take place. And this is one of those stories. It takes place in Australia. Katie Hanna, I think, does a really good job of taking the few hard rules in that universe and making the setting her own by putting in Australia and having a very relatable female main character who's a mom and who not only has to survive the RPG apocalypse herself, but also make sure her kids survive too. And I think that combination really just made this a really nice story. It's a fairly slice of life story because you're just, again, following somebody who's surviving the RPG apocalypse, doing quests, and going through those conflicts. There's regular action. There is some town building. I think there's probably going to be more in the second book. But there's still good class progression from both the main character and some of the side characters, and including one of her kids. And so all the things you liked about the regular System Apocalypse universe, like the big variety of classes and the flexible system that allows for that variety, all that exists here. There are a few minor gripes, I think, in the story that might be issues for some people. I don't think that weren't necessarily game breaking for me or story breaking for me, but I know some other people might have issues. For me, the first half of the story probably could have been a little tighter storytelling wise. The pacing started to drag a bit as the story was reaching about the 50% mark for me. And I think that was mostly because it felt a little repetitive with the main character, just kind of fighting monsters, trying to find survivors, fighting monsters, trying to find survivors, fighting monsters, trying to survive, interspersed with like some interpersonal relationship building in between sometimes. But those quests, and I understand that kind of has to exist, I guess, because of the quest the main character gets to like do some town building. That's not spoilery, it's in the novel description. But I feel like it probably could have shifted a little bit already and tightened up, because I started to get a little, not necessarily bored. Like I'm like, okay, when's the next big thing coming? And it took a little longer than I thought it was going to. It doesn't pop into like much later than it could have. But once the antagonists shift from just mutated animals to more complex forces, when I'm trying to spoil for you guys, and also like people who are bad, very common in the RPG apocalypse, the pacing picks up again because there's a variety of antagonists. It's not just them fighting mutated monsters or alien species or whatever, once you get some more complex foes, I think the pacing picked up again because, again, there's a variety of things for the main character to do and a variety of obstacles for her to overcome. And that really picked up the pacing for me. It's made it, more enjoyable again. I will note that the big quest conflict in the story is not resolved by the end of this novel. And I think that's one of the bigger issues for some readers. I think that I read a 1-star review on this novel because of that issue, specifically because that reader just hated that particular aspect. It didn't bother me so much. I understand probably why it was a cliffhanger, one, to get you to the next novel, but also this is already almost 500 pages. And I felt like to resolve that big conflict probably would have been another 100 to 150 pages. And so instead of pushing this out, longer and shortchanging the next book, just, okay, we'll cut it off here. This is a pretty decent point. And resolve the conflict in the next book and make it into a lead conflict for the next book in the series. And so that one already has like 100 page lead in its page content. That's a choice for the authors. I didn't personally have it. I felt frustrated, and I think a lot of other readers, because it really is just like, oh, the big conflict is coming up. Our time's flowing. Oh, look, there's our antagonist, and bam, literally just like an end. Like, oh, that's the end of this story. You can catch the rest of it in the next one. And I was like, oh. So I that's probably going to be echoed by some other readers as well. So overall, good stuff. Aside from those minor things, this is still an entertaining story. I think it's my favorite from Katie Hanna. The RPG stuff is in line what you would expect if you've read the other System Apocalypse series. If you haven't, and this is your first introduction into the universe, you'll probably feel really nice about the RPG system. It allows for a lot of variety of classes. Like, each person almost has their own unique class. There's a lot of good class progression here. The main character is smart, and she uses her powers, mixes them very well. So all that stuff is really nicely done. And there's lots of numbers and notifications on that, on that side of things. And I said the main character was very relatable. Had a really nice time with her as a character. Being a parent, I was like, I could absolutely feel like, oh, these issues, these relationships with her kids and those worries felt very realistic. And I liked that aspect of it as well, because it made her triumphs and her obstacles feel very important. And they felt like they had real issues, which made the story feel just more vibrant, for me at least. Overall, good stuff. Again, get the score of 7.7 out of 10. That's Town Under a Post-Apocalyptic LitRPG, The System Apocalypse Australia, book number 1, with the score of 7.7 out of 10. Next is Regression Instruction Manual, which is a webcomic. It is, as of this recording, 23 chapters. It is it's out there for free. There is no official English translator. This is fan translated. Here is the webcomic description. One day I was summoned to this world. Beasts poured out and an incredible crisis came. My talents could have been worse. The player's talent level is at rock bottom. Almost all numbers are hopeless. Whether you have become a warrior or a wizard, whether you've gone back in time. You have to take advantage of everything in order to survive. What about it? I'll use everything I have to survive. That's just the translated novel description. I like this webcomic. It's come out relatively recently, I think in the past 2 weeks. On the Ashore Scans site, they had lots of promotion for it because they had a number of chapters ready for release. And it's a nice web novel or comic based on a popular web novel about a main character who's a villain, who's transported to an RPG dungeon along with some other people from Earth. The twist for this is that the main character is a villain who has no compulsion about betraying, manipulating, or scheming to make sure that he'll survive and the monsters that they're forced to fight. Additionally, he has a special skill that lets him see other people's character sheets, and he figures out that one of the people with him is a regressor, who's somebody who's normally the main character, to be honest. A regressor is somebody who's reliving their life. They've gone through the apocalypse and they were sent back in time to relive their life again and try to do it, but only with the foreknowledge that they've already gone through. And so normally that person is the main character. And so this is not that character who's the main character. It's a side person who's a villainous kind of attitude, who's more than happy to ride the gravy train by attaching himself to this regressor and use his foreknowledge to kind of gain power and to manipulate him so that him and form a team who's going to survive. So there's a lot of like interesting manipulative scheming here, and the main character like setting up adversaries so that he can come out either as somebody who's being picked on and then gaining empathy, or as somebody who's dominating others for the benefit of the group. And so there's a lot of like, I'm gonna say political maneuvering, but definitely like relationship maneuvering, so that he always gets the advantage and he's able to grow in power and grow in strength, even though he's also helping other people, not just for their benefit, but really for his. So it's a different attitude than just like your normal hero who's looking to save everybody, or is looking to address, the things that have been poorly done to him or something. I liked the different viewpoint of the main character. I thought it's kind of fun. Overall, good read, really good artwork. I think it conveys the emotion of the main character, the action in the stories, like his scheminess. And again, it was just nice to get a story with somebody who doesn't mind getting his hands dirty or scheming his way to survival and power. So gets a score of 7.7 out of 10. I enjoy the weekly updates on this. So it's a Regressor instruction manual with a score of 7.7 out of 10. Okay, that's it for us, folks. Thanks for listening, for watching to the show. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Patreon, our website at LitRPGpodcast.com. And you can also listen to this latest episode on Spotify and on Audible. You'll find us both places. We'll also have a link in the show notes for some other LitRPG pages where you can talk to your favorite authors, get recommendations for new books and series that people have read. There are so many books out on a weekly basis. Sometimes I can't read them all, so sometimes it's nice to get other readers' opinions who have really enjoyed the genre as much as I have. Remember, if you want to support the podcast in any way, shape, or form, and you enjoy us, you can always find out all the ways to support us at litrpgpodcast.com/support. And until we can hang out again, ladies and gentlemen, thanks a lot for first letting me into your lives and listening to me go on about a genre I love. Until we can hang out, remember to go read some Lit RPG. Goodbye, everybody.